Hi, I'm Brad Rexley, former Vice President for Disney's Epcot theme park, and you're listening to the Coaster Challenge podcast.
Hi there, I'm Lee Cockrell. I'm the former Executive Vice President of Walt Disney World, and Mickey Mouse was my boss. And you're listening to the Coaster Challenge podcast.
Do you accept the Coaster Challenge? Yes, I accept the Coaster Challenge. Do you accept the Coaster Challenge? Coaster Challenge podcast is here. It's time to face your fears. Get that theme park therapy and let us blow through Coaster Challenge podcast is here. Your fear can disappear. We know that theme park therapy can dry up all your tears. Do you accept the Coaster Challenge? Yes, I accept the Coaster Challenge. Do you accept the Coaster Challenge? We accept because you know we're not average.
You're listening to the Coaster Challenge podcast. A journey where people become fearful to fearless, all from riding roller coasters. So please secure your hats and glasses and keep your hands and arms inside the podcast. It's time to accept the Coaster Challenge with your host, David Cantu and Jenna Giselle.
Hey, how's it going, Jenna?
How's it going, Dave?
It's going good, going good. Happy Friday.
What day are we on again?
It is April 15th.
I'm losing track of days again. I can't do this. I keep losing track of days.
Yeah, well, spring break is around the corner. In fact, for all those, welcome to our Season 2, guys. Season 2 of Coaster Challenge, and we're kicking it off this spring. And with spring, we've got a new coaster season, but along with a new coaster season, we've got a huge lineup of guests for all you guys here this season. I hope you guys keep your hands and arms inside the podcast because we are going to be going in for one heck of a ride this season because we've got so many guests already lined up, and we've got a really big one for you all today, right, Jen?
Yep.
So to kick off Season 2, we are going to kick off with a very, very special guest in the house today. We've got Andrew is with Jake Kilcup from Rocky Mountain Construction. He is the Chief Operating Officer of the organization, and Jake has got one heck of a story to share with all you guys about how he started working for Rocky Mountain Construction and just how much he loves his job and how much he just loves working for this company. And recently he was down in Florida back in March for the opening of Iron Gwazi over at Busch Gardens, Tampa.
Oh man, aren't we having like a couple of coasters opening up this year in our own parks?
Oh yeah, I mean Rocky Mountain Construction is currently building Wonder Woman over at Six Flags Magic Mountain. That is the single rail coaster. They have one called Jersey Devil over at Six Flags Great Adventure. They have them Railblazer over at California's Great America, and Wonder Woman also at Six Flags Fiesta Texas. Wonder Woman is about as big as Jersey Devil. It looks like, and finally, we're going to have a single rail coaster from Rocky Mountain Construction right here in the West Coast.
Oh, that'll be a first.
Yeah.
You know who's I want to go on that one.
Now, for all those that don't know who Rocky Mountain Construction is, if you've been to, especially here in Southern California, if you've been to any of the local parks here, the one coaster that stands out with Rocky Mountain Construction here in Southern California is Twisted Colossus over at Six Flags Magic Mountain. They've also done Steel Vengeance over at Cedar Point. They've done the Joker over at Six Flags Discovery Kingdom, Iron Rattler over at Six Flags Fiesta Texas, New Texas Giant over at Six Flags Over Texas. There is about an RMC coaster just slowly getting at every park. You know, you got everything from Twisted Timbers over at King's Dominion, Storm Chaser over at Kentucky Kingdom, got Lightning Rod over at Dollywood, you've got Outlaw Run over at Silver Dollar City. Man, if you think about it, almost every park has slowly been getting an RMC coaster. Yeah, but the recent RMC that has opened is Iron Gwazi over at Busch Gardens, Tampa, and I hear this is a really, really fun coaster. So I hope all you guys are ready to, if you haven't been down to Florida, this would be the best season to get down there to check out that new coaster from Rocky Mountain Construction. But anyway, guys, what is Rocky Mountain Construction for all those listeners that are not into the coaster community? Well, we've got here a little story from the person who had founded Rocky Mountain Construction, Fred Grubb. Did an incredible story video that you can find on RockyMountainConstruction.com. It's on the About page, but if you guys like to hear, it's just an incredible story, so take a listen.
Well, I got into that. I grew up welding when I was a young kid. Started when I was 13, 14 years old, welding aluminum pipe collars on irrigation pipe. where we grew up, you had to do a little bit of everything, and you started work at an early age. Also, at a young age, we had to raise hay, stack hay, contracted hay fields to do this. In our hometown, you had to do a little bit of everything to make stuff happen, to make a living. I love the challenge of this work. I love the challenge of our company. There are so many challenges within it. That's one thing I do love, is the creativity. I love to create, always have. Building roller coasters, we get to create things that have not been done before. It's very exciting. Coming to work every day here is it's a blessing. All of our employees that we have, all the young men, they're very proud to do this work. They're very excited to do it. They realize the importance of their work. They are very conscientious, and they have to be, because obviously they're working on roller coasters. We realize that I always think of our people not as employees but as assets, and I do. I think of them as assets, not employees. So it takes a very special person to work here, but when we do find them, they stick with us and they love their job. I'm proud to have them as part of our team, because they are a huge part of what we do. They take a lot of pride in what they do. They put forth a huge amount of effort to make things work for us. So I thought that there had to be a way to develop a new track. We spent a long time in development. It was very, very hard, and there was a point when I did not know, none of us knew if we could do it or not. Developing this track, the first thing you have to have is a great designer and a great engineer. And in Alan Schilke, we have what we feel is one of the best, if not the best, engineer. And he's also very creative, and he loves the challenge of all of this. And we've worked together. We've created a great team between us to be able to do this and pull this off. So we're very happy with what we've done. And we're very proud of it also.
All right, so Andrew is standing by with Jake from RMC. This is an incredible story, guys. I hope you enjoy it. So take it away, Andrew.
Thank you, David and Jenna. This is Andrew, one of the producers of the Coaster Challenge podcast, with you today. In the coaster enthusiast community, enthusiasts talk about all sorts of different favorites, superlatives. Favorite coasters, favorite parts, favorite elements, etc. One other type of favorite that is frequently discussed within the community is coaster manufacturers. Here in 2022, there are several coaster manufacturers that frequently top Thuzy favorite lists. Over the past 10 years, one such company has raised the bar for what it means to design and build a top-tier coaster to the delight of enthusiasts around the world. The Coaster Challenge podcast is proud to welcome Chief Operating Officer of Rocky Mountain Construction, Jake Kilcup. Welcome to the podcast, Jake.
Thanks. Glad to be here. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, we're excited to have you. Absolutely. Yeah, it's kind of funny. You know, I just did that intro for you there. I am not exaggerating. Literally, I don't know how much you get on Instagram. I love Instagram because it's got a great coaster enthusiast community. It's very, very, very thriving on there, if you will, versus say Facebook and Twitter and other social media. But it also has a lot more positivity. You tend to have less arguments and things like that, just the way Instagram is set up. And I just love it. And one of the things I love about Instagram is with the stories is the polls and the top 10s and, people posting things and sharing things. And I am not kidding with that intro there. I literally just had a friend post and send me like the blank form so I can fill it out myself. The top 10 coaster manufacturers, each, whatever you think, each person thinks. And RMC definitely is in my top 10, very high up in there. It's kind of funny talking about that in the intro and then seeing that on Instagram. But again, welcome. And to start off with, of course, a lot of our audience, enthusiasts in general, they know who you are and your story, especially thanks to Coaster Studios' awesome documentary, This Is How We Roll. But just, in case there's a few audience members that don't know who you are, tell us about yourself and your experience working within the industry.
So I got my start with the amusement industry, probably a little bit different than most people in my position. I didn't seek it out. There's quite a bit in the community that are, designing a lot of their lives about what they have to do to get inside the amusement industry. And I was always a fan of roller coasters growing up. Pretty big into extreme sports, skiing, snowboarding, wakeboarding, mountain biking, stuff like that. So I always enjoyed the adrenaline rush that you get at theme parks, but I hadn't thought about it as a career path. All my life I was, I like to draw and design things. So I went to school to be an architect, got my master's degree. I graduated, jobs were not really available in the building industry. Country was down at the time, and I ended up getting, the first job that I could get, which was at Office Max. I happened to be in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, just because I had gone to college at the University of Idaho, so it wasn't too far away. And my wife and I decided we were gonna give Coeur d'Alene a shot because I had a potential lead there with a local firm that I had done an internship for, and I was at Office Max for probably about 3 months. I met Amy Garcia a few times. She came in buying equipment for local small business. One day she mentioned she was looking to get a computer that could run AutoCAD specifically, and that piqued my interest and asked her a little bit about it. Ended up with a job interview with Fred that afternoon and got hired on by Rocky Mountain. They just sold the project to Six Flags over Texas, the new Texas giant, but they hadn't produced any track or really even gotten into the how. They kind of sold an idea, sold a potential. Six Flags saw the potential, agreed with them, and said, let's do this. And that started the rapid growth of RMC. At the time, there was a small handful of us. It was mostly construction workers. Fred did a lot of installations for other ride manufacturers as well as water parks. It was a little bit more of a construction-based company and started to grow up into a little bit of a design company. And now, we're pretty full-fledged on design, manufacture, install. Turnkey systems is kind of really what we like to push. And so that's how I ended up in the industry, which was pretty random, honestly. Things happen for a reason. I'm pretty excited to be where I'm at. Definitely don't take it for granted. I've enjoyed my time working with, Fred Grubb, Alan Schilke, and, getting to know some people and some incredible people in this industry and being able to learn from these people. I started by really communicating with Alan Schilke daily for 10 plus years. I think in the beginning, I probably didn't really understand what that meant, how great of an opportunity that was to learn from those two, because Alan's got such a unique mind and he's such a trailblazer when it comes to the amusement industry. And then Fred is the type of guy that won't say no when he can build anything, and both very creative people, but from different backgrounds. And pretty lucky and blessed to be able to work with those two individuals, work under those two individuals for 10 plus years, try to soak up as much as I could from them. But that's basically my backstory of how I got into the amusement industry. I don't regret a thing. So
that's a fantastic story. And I remember hearing a lot of that story being as part of This Is How We Roll. And then you were a big part of that documentary, understandably. But, thanks for sharing those details. And I love that story for a couple reasons. One, it's the American dream, which is awesome and positive. And that is such a fantastic story. And you should be really proud. And it's a great story. So what we're going to do next here is we'll talk more later about your work at RMC and some of the things you guys have got going on and whatnot. We'll have some fun with that. But before we get to that, you mentioned that you have always been interested in coasters. So tell me, what was the first coaster you remember ever experiencing yourself, ever riding?
So I put a little thought into this because I don't think I can pinpoint the exact first coaster I rode. I grew up in Gig Harbor, Washington, which is near Seattle. We had a small park there called Enchanted Village, and it now goes by Wild Waves. I'm sure that whatever the first coaster I rode was at that park. I guess the coaster that I really kind of remember experiencing would probably be Viper at Six Flags Magic Mountain. I remember going came to Magic Mountain, I want to say it was on Christmas Eve or something. The park was absolutely empty. The weather wasn't great.
Oh, wow.
There was no lines for anything. So I remember just riding Viper like 10 times in a row, just running around, going back into the station, doing it again and again and again. And how much fun it is when you just have free reign of the place like that. And you can just jump on anything and everything they got and just keep rolling. So it was probably an old Arrow.
That makes sense. Yeah, the Arrow Viper at Magic Mountain, that's a classic Arrow Mega Looper built back in the late 80s, back when so many of those were built, and classic steel inverting coaster. Absolutely. I've been in that many times myself. So how old were you say you were roughly when you rode Viper at Magic Mountain?
I was probably 13, 12. Somewhere around there. So it was a little older, but I remember growing up, we didn't ever travel specifically to amusement parks, but if we were adjacent to one, we'd want to go. I had two younger brothers, older sister. Everybody kind of really enjoyed that sort of thing. We'd always push our parents as much as we could to try to take us to all the theme parks. So we spent, I'd been to Disneyland several times, Universal Studios, Hollywood several times, Knott's Berry Farm, Magic Mountain, kind of done the whole tour down there multiple times. And every time we were in Southern California, we definitely try to hit up a park here or there.
Nice. So 12, 13 years old, riding, back then, riding a coaster like Viper, I mean, that's a pretty big coaster for, an early teen. Would you say that you had that sort of taste for thrills when you were even young, when you were a kid?
Yeah, I would, but I definitely didn't. It wasn't from day one. I definitely had some fear in me to start. It took getting the courage up to get on that first one, feel the thrill, and realize I want more of that. Why am I afraid to jump on these things? But in the beginning, I also have a memory of being younger than that, and the whole family's getting in line for the Matterhorn, and I was crying. I did not want to get on it, and my parents let me wait, and I didn't ride it. So I definitely know it wasn't day one jump on everything and anything. It was, it took some courage to overcome.
Yeah, of course. That totally makes sense. Well, speaking of courage, let's talk about kind of the journey you've gone through in your life. Now, it might have been, when you're very young, like you're talking about there, or it might have been since then, because certainly when, as little kids, our first coasters and big coasters, we go through facing fear, but then there's sort of that next level when we get into like later teen and adults where, these bigger coasters and, you and I are both engineering type people, and engineering and computer aided design and just everything, and just the competition amongst coaster manufacturers and parks has driven amazing developments in coasters over the past 10, 20 years. And so they keep building bigger, faster, more inversions, more intense. Of course, one of the big things now is certainly with RMC is, only having lap bars and not having any kind of over the shoulder restraints. So you're more free, and that can be daunting for people as well. So there's all sorts of factors that come in here. Mm-hmm. But so we have that sort of that second big phase of facing fear. Of all the coasters you've ridden in your life, which is the one that you would say scared you the most to ride before you got on it?
That's a little bit of a tough one because I'm definitely jaded now.
Well, let me put it to you this way. So you started with RMC very early on. Obviously, I'm sure you've ridden pretty much all, maybe not all, but most, if not all, of RMC coasters. And there's some pretty intense ones in your catalog. Was there maybe one of RMC's where it was a big step up from previously what you guys had done, where it was fearful for you and a big jump for you? Maybe that?
No, not really. I guess maybe if I go back a little bit further, basically when I had first started with RMC, my first time going out on the road, I went to a site visit of New Texas Giant Construction. So naturally, I took a day to mess around in the park because I was there over a weekend, and I hadn't, I'd ridden whatever was at Magic Mountain at the time, or some of the parks that I had been to, Knott's Berry Farm, but things like Accelerator, weren't there when I had gone. So Titan probably at Six Flags Over Texas was probably my first step into a pretty large coaster, heavy G-forces, things like that. I wouldn't say it was scary, but it definitely was one of the last times I remember having that feeling of anticipation a little bit more.
So that's sort of like,
I don't get the falling sensation anymore. And
right. So I think we're on the same wavelength here, but I'm not necessarily talking about like being super afraid to get on the ride, but maybe the last time you felt any sort of like jitters, anxiety before getting on, like being a little nervous about getting on the ride. So was Titan kind of the last time you remember feeling that?
Yeah, really. I think it was. As soon as you hit a couple of them, especially if you do them back to back to back, you really, your body builds up a tolerance pretty quick, and so does your mind. Yep. So it kind of robs you of that. Adrenaline's a drug. it's you're always chasing that high that you used to get, but your body gets used to it a little bit.
Right,
so,
right.
You lose that anxiety, that anticipation, and like I said, I don't get the falling sensation anymore. That's a feeling that I like to get. I'll ride drop towers and not really feel it anymore. Kind of sad.
Yeah, but yeah. So I get what you're saying though about as we break these fears, where you don't get all that intensity, that nervousness, and that kicking into the adrenaline rush. But I do believe that getting the science of it or whatnot, but you still get the positive endorphins, and you still get some of that positive benefit from riding these rides, even if you've been on them many times. But I get it. There's that you don't have quite that edge like you used to. So you mentioned that you rode Titan, which is the sister coaster to Goliath at Magic Mountain, both made by Giambola, and they're hyper coasters. And actually, I think they're pretty decent hyper coasters. They were built basically right around the year 2000. They've got pretty good layouts. They've got some good helixes and whatnot. Pretty, like you said, pretty good positive G-forces and whatnot. Was it the G-forces? Was it maybe the height, just being like a really tall coaster and kind of conquering that kind of, you were like, you're ready for anything else after? Is that kind of it?
Yeah, I think it was a combination of those two things specifically, is just the sheer height of it, that drop, and then the G-forces, I think, were beyond what I had really experienced, or at least remembered experiencing to that point. And you start to gray out and get that tunnel vision.
Yep.
You're
I
going
love
around
that.
the helix.
Yep. Yep. Yeah, it's funny.
Yeah.
Do you consider yourself a coaster enthusiast? Like, do you keep track of how many coasters you've been on, or seek out and go to certain parks to ride certain coasters?
I don't think I could call myself an enthusiast because I'm not as committed as a true enthusiast would be. I mean, I definitely ride them every opportunity I get, but I don't set destinations around amusement parks.
Gotcha. Okay.
I love to go on them. It's because I don't think I'm worthy.
Oh, yeah. Well,
I don't have the coaster count. I don't have, I don't have all that. So,
well, we may not have
my
those
coaster
things.
count's probably not as respectable as it should be. So
that can change, first of all, but you may not have all those things regardless. I would bet that if you were to poll 100 enthusiasts, they would all say that you have the right to call yourself an enthusiast because of what you do, what you build for all of us. So yeah, no, I appreciate your humbleness there, though. I was asking because we have the concept, being enthusiasts, of white whale. We might have been to a certain park, but we didn't get to go on a certain coaster because the weather, or there was a maintenance issue, or
right.
Or having gone to the park before the coaster was built, you hadn't been there in a while. So Titan helped you kind of get over the edge. Would you say, how did riding Titan and realizing that you're ready for anything now, how did that impact your life? Was it simply a matter of you could go on any coaster after that, or were there any other impacts?
I'm sure there were beyond roller coasters, but it's probably hard to quantify that. But, there's a level of confidence when you overcome something that has some form of anxiety prior to doing it, right? I mean, like you mentioned, release of endorphins after that, your body's kind of trained that you go seek out, repeat that behavior because I want some more of that good drug.
Right, right.
There's a little bit of that positive reinforcement. So I'm sure that did help me gain confidence. I guess that is beyond just the fact that I was conquering the largest thing in the park. So it was like, okay, well, whatever else is here, let's go do that too. I think it's probably reflected mostly in just the amusement industry, and give me whatever else you got because I'm ready for it.
Right. I love the attitude. And yeah, it's a good point about confidence. I talk about a lot with a lot of the people I interview. If we pull back the curtain just a little bit more here, go beyond coasters and theme parks, because I know you're a big thrill seeker. So what is maybe beyond riding a coaster, Titan, et cetera, is there something you've done as a thrill seeker in general that's been the craziest thing you've ever did that was a huge confidence builder for you, anxiety fighter for you?
Yeah, I would have to say that snowboarding and skiing probably are the two things that have just given me the most amount of confidence, just doing things that, working your way up to doing something crazier and crazier wouldn't have thought you'd ever done before. The first, I grew up doing quite a bit of snowboarding and just slowly progressing and hitting bigger and bigger jumps and doing more and more in the backcountry and things like that. You can always find something in nature that is going to give you anxiety. I mean, there's not a level of, you can't max it out. You just can't. Well, I'm sure some people can, but I don't think I have have that ability. There's always something that it's just like, there's risk involved. And, when there's risk involved, it changes the math.
Right.
And I guess your body kind of gives you a little bit more when you do something like that, when you overcome something like that has actual real world risk. I mean, a roller coaster, I think Alan said this, and this is how we roll. A roller coaster is a freebie. It's fake risk. So,
right.
It's thrill without the real risk. And
right.
So yeah, it's a little bit easier in the real world to go out and expose yourself and really have the ability to things not to go well,
Right, right. Yeah, especially the things you mentioned. That's what I was saying at the beginning too, is coasters are a great way to flex this sort of concept of facing fear and anxiety, because they're largely without risk. I mean, they're so safe compared to certainly snowboarding. And I don't snowboard or ski. I've got friends that do. And like doing aerial tricks and jumps, like you said, and they're very dangerous because, and in a way, you're getting a lot of the same kind of forces. You're getting speed going down a hill. You're, going, if you're doing flips, you're going through inversions. You're experiencing G forces with turns, and it's just like a coaster, but except you are literally off the rails. You're not attached to the rails.
Right.
So yeah, so I can imagine, you doing that stuff and perhaps sounds like an early age. Yeah, that was a big way for you to conquer fear in a big way. That's awesome. Nice. Now I realize, given the nature of working for RMC, that you have, been out on these coasters before they open to the public, and they're still working out the kinks and bugs and things like that. So aside from that, in terms of normal operation, given the nature of the question I'm going to ask you, just based on normal operations, what would you say has been your craziest moment on a coaster?
I think I'm going to have to go with X2, just because when I first rode X2, it was actually the VIP event for Twisted Colossus, 2015, I believe. So I had been on a fair bit of rides, several parts. X2 was just different. It had a few moments on it that really resonated with me. When you start to move the coaches, your seat position as you're going around, that interaction with the ride layout was pretty interesting. And I think that that could fall into being gimmicky, but it didn't. I could see where you would start to pull back on the ride layout and let the seat position do more what the layout really should be doing. And that I think that X2 didn't do that. It really was a fun layout with some great elements. And then also, here's the exclamation point. This is just something that can do little something more with a breaking wave turn or something like that Alan likes to throw on his layouts.
Yeah,
I know what that feels like, and I'm going on that, and then my seat kind of rotates at the apex of that turn, and it feels like it's trying to toss me out. It's just that added element that kind of made the element come alive for me a little bit more. So I'd say that's probably one that just like that really resonated with me. You can get jaded, you can start to think that I've ridden a few, so I know there's nothing new. I've done it all, and that's a little bit eye opening when you go and say, okay, all right, well, that's definitely different. That's something that I haven't experienced before.
Right. That's a great answer. I love it. So I guess I got to ask, you alluded to this a little bit. So you were there for the Twisted Colossus VIP event. Was Alan there at the event as well?
No. So we had to split up because it just ended up that the media day event, Twisted Cyclone at Agawam, was on the same day. So Fred and I ended up at Six Flags, and then Scott, one of my coworkers, and Alan ended up back east for that one. So
I see.
Which I was a little jealous of them because they rode that coaster like 30 times, just over and over again. And we were at the VIP event. We thought it was the VIP event. I waited in line for like 2.5 hours.
Oh my gosh. Oh, wow.
There were quite a few people there. It was fun. Don't get me wrong. My first ride on Twisted Colossus was with the three brothers, the original builders of Colossus. So that was a pretty incredible experience just to be, especially with the lift hills, on Colossus. So on the way up, we're kind of having a conversation about it. And here we go. And then on your way up the lift hill the second time around, they're turning around looking at Fred and I, and they were just like, "You guys are crazy. This is insane." And so it was just like, it was a really cool moment, to have these guys who, built this thing in the 70s, such a long time ago. And they had since moved on to do a lot of park master planning, a lot of work with Legoland and other things. So it was kind of fun to meet those guys, first of all. And they were very kind and complimentary. I can imagine how some people might be offended by what we did.
Yeah, that's awesome. It's almost surreal.
They were they were great. It was a ton of fun. It was just a little packed for VIP day.
Yeah, it sounds like it. Going back to X2, so when you got back up to Idaho after that event, did you have a chat with Alan? So say, Alan, so I finally rode X2, and I mean, yeah, did you?
Oh yeah, no, I was on the phone with him while I was.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Because Alan is a true connoisseur, so I had to call him to ask him what the proper seat was. I had to make sure that I experienced the ride properly, and I'll tell you, his answer was so precise. I don't recall now, but it was.
Okay, I was gonna say, what is it? Yeah.
It was exact row, it was an exact side, and it was an exact seat on that side, and he had specifications for the person sitting next to you. So
a true engineer. I love it. A true engineer.
Yes, he had a very detailed answer of how to experience it properly. So that's
awesome. I love it.
True Alan fashion right there.
I love it. It's a whole other level when you talk to the guy who designed the coaster, a true engineer, and what his reasons. You're going to listen to him, and he's got reasons. He knows that coaster better than anyone. So that's great. I love it. I love it. My next question, I'm going to give you the pass on this. That if it is an RMC coaster, don't. It's fine. That's certainly understandable. But if it's not, that's fine too. But what would you say is your favorite coaster?
Why don't we just take RMC off the board, and I'll give you my favorite non-RMC.
Sure, that's great. That's fair.
Because that's boring to come on and say,
So, yeah, pleasing, right?
So I would have to say my favorite non-RMC coaster that I ever rode was I-305.
Oh, so that's why. Okay, so for our listeners, again, this is an audio podcast. When I mentioned I-305 earlier being a white whale, I was looking at Jake because we record, with video just so we can see each other when we're doing the interviews. It's more personal that way. And Jake was smiling big time when I mentioned I-305. So now I know why. So I-305 is really high up there for you.
Oh, it's a ton of fun. It's just aggressive, but correctly aggressive, I guess. I don't know how to describe it quite right to do it justice, but they did a really good job with that ride, that layout. It's real snappy, ton of fun. I rode it when we were doing Twisted Timbers out there at the park. So I didn't experience it in its original form. I got the reprofiled version.
Right.
So I can only imagine what it used to run like.
Oh yeah, I've ridden it. Yeah. Next one, again, probably pull RMC out of the equation. What would you say is your least favorite coaster?
I'm not sure I want to answer this.
I understand. Yeah, I understand. For you, we'll skip the question. I get it. So
I'll be honest. I haven't really had a bad experience on a roller coaster. I mean, it made there's nothing that stands out to me as like, oh, that was awful or something like that. I mean, the worst case scenario is riding an old Woody and getting a little beat up, but you kind of know what's going to happen, right? So yeah, I definitely don't want to be picking out my least favorite though.
No, that's fine. I mean, for anyone else, if people have fun with the question, they're like, oh, I hate this or because of this, but I respect that. Mad respect right there. Absolutely. So let's go ahead and go into the second half of the interview here. And this gets more into specifics of your experience working at RMC. You kind of went through in a very nice way in the beginning of the interview here, your journey and how you started off there after college at Office Max and then wound up at RMC. But I'm curious if maybe there's some more gems here. You went from working at that Office Max store to working for one of the premier coaster manufacturers in the world, being a fan of coasters. Were there interesting parts to that journey? You had that interview with Fred that same day and you got hired, and like, were there moments where you couldn't believe this was happening, or can you talk about that?
Not really. There wasn't that sort of thing, because when I came on, RMC wasn't RMC at the time.
Right.
So it was, Fred's a pretty interesting guy and kind of eccentric. So sometimes you're like, is this guy for real? There was a lot of that, honestly, in the beginning, where, and then things just started going at such quick rate, just such a fast pace that it was just, there was no time to think about anything. I was just constantly working on the next thing. You look up, it was really cool to see that documentary that everybody put together, Taylor and Sarah and Scott. That was so cool, just because we went to the premiere out here at Silverwood would. We premiered it up here at the local park so that RMC could go, all the crew could go watch it. And it was just such a cool experience because I just started looking around and kind of talking to a few people, and it's like, we have never stopped to take a breath and look back. This is such a fun, nostalgic thing to sit here and watch, because you're on to the next. I mean, this is fast moving industry. You got to perform for your clients. You know, you got to hit those opening dates. They've got huge marketing projects built around. So it's just like you're always focused on the next step. So it's hard for you to enjoy what you've already done.
Right.
So that was just so fun to be able to step back and just look at like, oh man, look at how far we've come in the past 12, 13 years. It's pretty incredible. And it was a ton of fun to do that. But yeah, like at the time while it was happening, it's just one of those things that you were so in the moment that it just didn't occur to me what we were doing was special. It was just we were just trying to work and perform for our clients.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. And it sounds like, correct me if I'm wrong, the way you're describing things. So when you went from Office Max, the interview, and got hired right on, like you pointed out, RMC wasn't the company it is today. It was just getting started. So in a way, you were working for a startup at the time. And you say, Fred can be kind of crazy and wacky with his ideas. Maybe it was the reverse of what I was thinking. Was it for you early on there, like, oh gosh, is this going to work out? Or I wonder how this is going to go? Is that sort of early on there?
Oh, absolutely. I'll be honest. In my job interview with Fred, I mean, I was like, this guy's crazy. This is never going to last. But it'll probably be fun.
Right. That's awesome.
So
That's
awesome. I'll willingly admit that I did not have a ton of faith in Fred at the time, and that was just because I didn't know him yet.
Right. Of course.
But yeah, I got to come on and be a big part of the development of the track detailing and the production process, how we build it and everything. So it was a once in a lifetime opportunity that I didn't realize I had at the time.
Right.
It took looking back on it and what we had been through for me to really appreciate the opportunity that I had. And at the time I was probably just stressed out and wasn't thinking about it as an opportunity, but then you look back at it and you realize that people will get put in positions like that. People don't have this sort of thing come along very often.
Yeah, it's like a once in a lifetime type experience or opportunity. Absolutely. Yeah. So you mentioned, just real quick, just to touch upon the other thing you mentioned about the premiere, This Is How We Roll up there at Silverwood, was seeing that film for the first time. Obviously you were part of the film, you were interviewed in it and so forth, but seeing it all put together, like taking a step back from all this hard work, that 13 years and all that, was it an emotional experience for you watching the movie for the first time?
It was just so fun. And the first time I watched it, I was just like, man, I forgot about that. Oh yeah. Look at that. Oh man, I remember that. That was horrible. You're going through, it's basically 10 years compressed into an hour and 20 minutes, and you still go through the entire emotional roller coaster of the film. So you just relive it. But then, afterward, I've seen it since then. I've showed family, and it's just like, you have a pretty big sense of pride when you get to show some people that. And I can't thank Taylor and Sarah and Scott enough for putting something like that together, because it's pretty amazing that we can look back and basically have this memory lane on film that we can watch, and we can show friends and family. But this snippet of 10 plus years of our lives of just this compressed, crazy time period where we were just moving and shaking. And it was definitely an amazing project to be able to be a part of. And it was also very shocking. I had no idea I was going to be I thought I was going to be like a snippet in the background of one spot of the film. Most of the interview was done at one time, and then like the motorcycle thing, embarrassing.
Things happen.
But it was just like, that was like their last day here, their second or third trip up here.
Really?
They just were like, hey, can we get a few shots? And I was like, okay, I'll ride my boat. And then like an hour later of them telling me to do this or do that, I was like, okay.
That's surreal. Right, yeah.
We'll see how this turns out.
It all worked out. Yeah. So you were early on in the second season, this episode of Coaster Challenge, but in our first season, we actually had Taylor and Sarah on together, Coaster Studios. And then later on, we've also interviewed Scott separately. And when we interviewed Taylor and Sarah, this is before the movie was released and all the details were, and so they were, they were excited about it. They talked in general terms about it. They couldn't say a lot of things for obvious reasons, but you could tell the excitement on their voices. And Scott, we talked to after the movie was released, and he's of course very proud of it and the work he did and helping with the filming and whatnot. So it is something you should be very proud of to have all that documented, all that hard work you guys put in. So this next question, if I were to ask this question to anyone that's been on an RMC or, especially enthusiasts, people are going to have different opinions. They're going to have different answers, but I'm curious, being you in the position you're in and being there with the company almost from the start, from the get-go, what do you think it is about RMC's coasters that has created such fervent fandom among so many enthusiasts? Like, it's you guys aren't just another coaster company. I mean, you have a huge following, understandably. So I'm curious what your perspective is on.
Yeah, I think, well, first off, you got to have the product. You got to be able to back it up, right? I mean, that's where it started. We wouldn't have a following if it didn't start with us putting out a pretty game-changing product out in Texas. And that took the vision of Fred and Alan combined to pull that off. I mean, that's 100% on them. Alan is incredible at ride layouts. He can feel the ride. He knows exactly what it's going to be. He'll tell me, hey, this area on this ride, nobody's talking about it during, on the POVs. Like, trust me, that's going to be the spot that people are talking about after they ride it. Things like that. He knows. He's a savant. He's incredible at putting together just super fun ride layouts. And I'm more inclined to like his type of layouts. It's much more airtime and less G-forces. And I don't enjoy positive G-forces as much as I enjoy negative. So, I think that there's probably a little bit of that where a lot of people just enjoy the RMC, hopping out of your seat. We just don't have a ton of negatives on our ride at all. I think there's a little bit of that. And then the enthusiast community embraced us. And I think one of the big things is we embraced them back. I don't think that's always the case for some of them. So I think they really appreciated that we appreciated their fandom. We appreciated their, we get all sorts of letters.
I bet.
We get layouts, and it's super fun though. A lot of young kids draw pictures of roller coasters and send them to us.
That's cool.
We try to interact. We try to respond with them. We try to send something back to them that, is special to them, so that we can, even if it's something, dinky little whatever, it's still something that they wrote to a manufacturer and we sent them something in appreciation. We do our best to keep up on that sort of thing. I'm not going to say that we're amazing at it and respond to everybody, but I think there's some of that too. The enthusiast community wants to be heard, and I think we recognize them and listen as much as we can, or at least, let them know that we got people showing up at our facility all the time asking for tours. And we are in the middle of nowhere in North Idaho. It's like
right.
This is a destination. You have to be on your way here. This is not on the way to something. So, you just appreciate that somebody, what you do for a living, somebody thinks that's so cool and fun that they're willing to spend their free time trying to come see you.
Right.
That's pretty incredible. Why wouldn't I give them the time of day?
That's awesome. Love the attitude. That's great. Love the attitude. Another thing, of course, that makes RMC unique, and I think this is part of your formula, not all of your coasters are this, but a lot of your coasters are your scale hybrid conversions. Some of them ground up, but a lot of them are conversions where you take a wooden coaster that has fallen into disrepair, it's not been maintained well. If it's even possible, it would take a lot of effort and investment to bring it back up to where it's fun again and a ride people would love again. So when, you guys take it and you make it into something brand new and it's amazing, different experience. So you guys take rides that people hate or come to hate because they get so rough and whatnot and make them something that people love and they can re-ride again and again. So I think that's another thing that makes RMC unique in that regard. With that in mind, with the hybrid coaster in mind, and converting a wood to a hybrid that you guys do you think that, taking a step back from being there working at RMC, do you think that there is a line in the sand where there are certain legendary wooden coasters that should really ideally never be converted to hybrids? Think coasters like the Beast, the Voyage. What's your opinion on that?
No, I don't. I don't think that there's untouchables.
Okay.
But I think it's got to be the right move, the right circumstances. There's a lot of money that goes into maintaining these rides, but I know when we went out to Cedar Point, Mean Streak, just people weren't riding it like they used to, and so it just made sense, I think, for them to, it was a good financial decision for them. I think in the end, they got rejuvenate an old ride. And, you know, it's our goal to hold on to as much of the history of that ride as possible. This is just a part of the life of that ride. I mean, no ride's going to last forever. So eventually something's going to happen to it. So maybe, you know, if RMC can breathe new life into something, that's pretty cool too. People get to talk about how they rode it before the conversion, after the conversion. People got that credit that other people can't get anymore. So that's it. You know, it becomes a little bit more of a rarefied thing that I rode it back before that or back when.
Right.
I think there's a lot of fun to be had there. You know, I don't think anybody thinks that wooden coasters are going to last forever. And, you know, rather than tearing them down, there's such a iconic view in the park. You know, there's not a lot of diversity in the steel coaster look.
Right.
It's just, you know, it's efficiency, it's steel columns, it's track. So it's nice that you have that different look in the park. And if we can smooth that out and make it more family friendly, not even family friendly, it's still thrill, but the ridership goes up if the ride's smoother. I mean, I love that my parents can ride with my kids on these rides and do it over and over again. Let's be real, the steel coasters are just visually intimidating to young kids. There is that fear factor we talked about earlier, and for whatever reason, a wooden structure is just much more inviting and warmer for kids to jump on. It doesn't scare them as much. And then if they can kind of get tricked into jumping on an RMC because it looks all nice and tame, and then they ride it, you know, maybe we can help them overcome that fear because they just rode a coaster that went upside down even though they didn't know it was going to. Hey, that wasn't so bad.
You were recently promoted, and by the way, congratulations, from being Director of Design and Engineering to Chief Operating Officer. What challenges are you facing in your new role? How are things different for you?
You know, I'm just dealing with a lot more processes throughout the entire company. You know, I'm dealing with more of the business side. It's a ton of fun because it's just another challenge in my life, learning more skills, working with more people. It's hard to pull back. It's easy to stay in an area where you feel safe and secure. I don't know. The way I kind of look at it, if I'm feeling totally safe and secure in my life, I'm probably not growing as much as I could be. And I always want to try to push myself to get better and be better. And I'm lucky enough to be part of a great family-run company that we really invest in our people. It's our goal to raise people up here. We want everybody to get better. We want to make their lives better. Tons of our employees I've known for 10 plus years because we hold on to people because we really do care about them. We know our kids play baseball together, you know, things like that. It's really fun when you can be a part of a company where everybody just is valued and is treated well. And, you know, there can always be improvements there, and we're always looking for that. You know, we're always just trying to push the envelope, and, you know, we're not going to be a Google. We want to slides in the office probably, but you know, we want to be progressive in the office, in the manufacturing facility, on the road. We want to find ways to take care of the people who work here. None of this is possible without them. We have an incredible crew from the top to the bottom in all different avenues of RMC. You couldn't do this without great people. Everybody cares. Everybody cares about this place. I've never worked somewhere where all the employees care so much about the success of the company. You know, there's really nobody ever says that's not my job. You know, if something needs to get done, it gets done. We had schedule challenges on Stunt Pilot out here, which is a smaller Raptor model, our standard Raptor model that we put in out at Silverwood. We had issues, and, you know, we had several, the engineering staff, the administrative staff out on site in October helping to set rebar cages because we needed to pour concrete the next day because we had a cold front coming in, so we had to accelerate, you know, and we just, all right, drop what you're doing, team. We got to do this. This is what matters now. There's a lot of places I think where you're not going to have people almost excited to go do that too, because, you know, a lot of these people haven't had the opportunity to be on site or see that construction side of things, and the guys who are doing the construction appreciate the help and see, okay, they're willing to come out here in their nice shoes or whatever, you know, their fancy shoes, and come and get them dirty and help us out on site. And I think that goes a long ways toward the relationship of the whole team from the top to the bottom. So that's what I really enjoy, is being able to be a part of the company and be able to affect people's lives in a positive way as much as we can. And it's a new challenge on the business side of things, but it's super fun. I'm excited where we're headed.
That's awesome. You mentioned, you know, in your changing your role that, you know, you embraced it, and you're able to step outside your comfort zone and so forth, where, you know, a lot of people that have challenges doing that. Do you think if we take a step back from that your ability, your thrill seeking and, you know, conquering conquering fear, even at young age, that has enabled you to kind of push forward in your career like that and take those, stepping outside your comfort zone? Do you think that maybe relates?
Oh, absolutely. The longer you go without challenging yourself or trying to conquer a fear, the more that fear grabs hold of you and locks you up, right? So, that's step one. Is you have to have the courage to step outside your comfort zone, which is difficult. It just is. But I've also had, some great mentors in my life. I definitely haven't done it alone. I've been encouraged. I've been pushed at times, and it takes people in your life who care about you enough to invest in you to do that. I definitely wouldn't be where I am today without Fred and Alan and several others really encouraging me, pushing me beyond what I thought I was capable of, which that leads to confidence, and the courage to overcome just leads to more confidence. And then you get to a point where you're able to do more and more, just beyond what you ever would have thought you could do. Very appreciative of the people in my life who have really helped me out. I mean, I haven't talked about it all in this interview, but my family, my parents, I've got a great foundation from my folks that
awesome.
Have helped raise me up. And, I know that I have somebody that I can always depend on, and no matter how bad I screw up, they're still going to love me. Well, hopefully. Haven't crossed that line yet.
Hopefully you don't have to find that out.
Yeah. I mean, it's hard to get anywhere in life by yourself. It takes training. It takes experience. We should be standing on the shoulders of those who came before us as much as we can.
Absolutely.
Why recreate things? You can rethink things, sure, but build upon a foundation that already exists. We already know it's strong. So what I try to do as much as possible is be a sponge. You never know how long you're going to be around some of these incredible people. Don't take it for granted.
Yeah, absolutely. I love it. Hey, one of my friends, he was at the Silverwood premiere, got invited for This Is How We Roll, and went to the factory and so forth. And he was messaging me. He's like, "This is the future, man. This is the future." And he's telling me about this 208 track. So I guess you guys were telling him about. So tell us, because I've not, I could have asked him about it, but I was busy working, whatever. And I'm going to hear it from the source here. Tell us and our audience about the 208 track. What is it? How is it going to change the landscape for the coasters that you guys create?
Yeah, we love to reprofile coasters, but those are a large budget project. It's essentially a new ride. There's a lot of wooden coasters out there that, need a little help. Either there's a lot of small parts with a smaller wooden coaster and they're having trouble maintaining it. So our 208 product is essentially similar to our iBox track, some few subtle differences that allow Park to replace portions of their wooden coaster or all of it if they'd prefer to. But basically we could phase out replacing some tracks. So if they have specific difficult areas, we could swap out sections. We've done this at Silverwood. They've got some of our 208 track they've had for the past year on their coasters, and we're doing some more of it for them right now. Basically, we're slowly over time phasing out the wooden track stack. It's an unpainted weathering steel product, so it blends pretty well with the existing structure. No need to upgrade your mechanical systems or your train. So it's just a more sustainable track system that can go in place where they don't have to bite off that giant all at once reprofile product. So, and we're not coming out and reprofiling. We're essentially matching what exists. We'll smooth it out a little bit. We still run it through our profiles, but we're going out and we're surveying the existing rails and deciding upon a length or a location to tie in and tie out of the existing wood stack and swapping it out. Price points lower. We can address specific problem areas. We don't have to reprofile. We don't have to upgrade mechanical systems. We don't have to change your train. And obviously, there's corners on some coasters where they're replacing at least top 2 layers every other year. Just a lot of money going into them. So, the track's going to last significantly longer. The price point's actually, relatively close to replacing a full track stack repair.
Wow.
The idea is, working with some of the, getting into some of these other parks. I know that some people right now are shuddering at the thought of us destroying all the wooden coasters out there. I get that. But the other side of it is some of these parks are able to maintain their wooden coasters at a cheaper price point. It means that they have more CapEx investment that they can go out and expand the park in more areas. It may not be everybody's dream, and it's probably not right for every ride, but there's definitely a lot of rides out there that this is feedback we're getting from other customers as well. People are looking for this product. So yeah, we kind of slow rolled it out throughout the pandemic, took the opportunity to do some work up there at Silverwood since they're 10 minutes down the road. Things things went really well, and I think we'll have about 2,000 feet in total out there on their 2 wooden coasters now. Hopefully just keep on going, finish it out.
Nice. That's awesome. Is the 208 product, like for someone like me, is it where if a customer goes with that on a traditional wooden coaster, that it's going to feel more like a regular wooden coaster still? Is that kind of what you're saying? Same trains and...
Yeah, it's still going to be, I don't want to, rough isn't the right word, but it's still going to ride like a steel coaster. It's still going to be on steel wheels. It's still not going to have suspension. It's still going to have the track gauge is still can't be tightened up and preload the guide wheels like you can with a suspension coaster. So it's still going to have a little bit of that searching from left to right, you know, so it doesn't lose all of the essence of a wooden coaster. And honestly, I don't know how much of the general public even notice it when they go over it as they're riding, when they hit that section. I think that they probably, something was different there, or, you know, that it'll stand out to them that it's smoother, but I don't think that you would surprise them if you told them now you were on an all steel rail there for a little bit. Yeah, it's not like you're full on changing the ride, the complete essence of the ride. You're making it a little bit more sustainable, a little bit easier to manage for the park. Yeah. So yeah, it's not a full on replacement as far as that goes. So I do believe it keeps the essence of a wooden coaster for the most part. I'm sure that there will be people out there who disagree for sure. I fully understand. I fully understand that perspective as well. And you know, earlier when I said there's not a line in the sand, you know, I mean, that's my personal opinion. I totally realize that there are people who are going to be staunch against that, and there's going to be parks who just I have a legendary wooden coaster. We're going to keep it. We're going to maintain it. It's worth it. You know, and there's nothing wrong with that. I enjoy wooden coasters just as much as anybody else.
Yeah. Okay, that's great. And as someone who loves wooden coasters, I think it's great that you guys are offering a product that allows a coaster to be more or less still like a traditional wooden coaster, but at a cheaper price point in terms of maintenance and upkeep. And that's outstanding. So I'm excited about, getting on some coasters like this. I've actually never been to Silverwood, but it's one of those parks that's on my list to eventually get to. And yeah, for sure. And hopefully when I go up there, I can hopefully stop by and check out facilities as well. And like so many of my friends have already done, as you mentioned earlier.
Well, so another side note on that real quick is we don't want Son of Beast happening again. If we can save a coaster rather than lose a coaster, maybe this is an okay compromise even for those diehards who are, as soon as you put steel on it, it's no longer a wooden coaster. That's fine, but a coaster is better than no coaster. So
agreed. Yes. Yeah. Someone who rode Son of Beast opening year, it's unfortunate. That's a cautionary tale of how things maybe not going the way they should ideally, and that's how life goes sometimes. And the thing we can all do from that, whether it be Kings Island, the park that the coaster was at, or just the amusement park industry, theme park industry in general, is just to all learn how to do things better and whatnot. That's how we can do things. Speaking of making coasters better, I want to ask you about a rumor that's been circulating. Of course, there's all sorts of rumors that circulate around, and some have more validity than others. But as you mentioned, Fred, who founded RMC, he has these crazy ideas and he makes them happen. So there have been rumors circulating in the enthusiast community that RMC could actually retrofit existing coasters that are steel coasters. These are not wooden coasters being converted to hybrids or being upgraded. These are just full out already all steel coasters that RMC could improve upon. Is this something that's actually there's substantiated? Is this something you guys potentially could do? You've thought about, or?
Yeah, we've actually had some discussions about this. Obviously, it's quite a bit. It's going to be different than a wooden hybrid style takeover at that point. You're dealing with a lot less structure. You're dealing with a more fixed layout, so it cuts down on some of the options a little bit, but definitely a possibility, and there seems to be some interest out there in the market. So we've explored it a little bit. There's nothing imminent here.
Okay, yeah, of course, I understand you can't go into details. Thanks for confirming the possibility. And yeah, I mean, we are seeing steel coasters have been around since basically technically the 50s. Matterhorn being the first one, the modern tubular steel track, but there was especially since the 70s and 80s, that's where they really started to get Arrow went crazy and etc. A lot of these coasters, whether it be in the Arrow's case, Arrow doesn't exist anymore. You can't get the spare parts, can't replace the track so easily. Right. They're just getting older, and some of them are getting really rough. And we talked about Viper earlier. Viper can be a little rough in Magic Mountain. So I definitely, and again, I'm not asking you to go in detail, but I can see where you guys could potentially do something, because like wooden coasters that get rough and are hard to maintain, this same thing is happening with steel coasters over time. I get it. Last general question here. We ask this of all our guests. We've talked, especially in the first half, about fear and how conquering fear can help you, and even kind of reflected on in talking about RMC specifically, how perhaps you being able to conquer fear and getting past that has helped you in your career as well. Do you have any final advice you can give those that are listening, people that are maybe struggling to conquer anxiety and fear and move forward in life?
Yeah, nobody else is going to do it for you, and it's not going to be easy. It's going to be uncomfortable, but in the end, it's going to be better. I mean, I think about that. Anytime you ride a ride, I mean, we talked about conquering our own fear earlier. The fear in your mind can be debilitating, but as soon as you go through that actual physical ride, you get off and you realize that you had built it up so much stronger in your mind. But that's also why you're the only one that can make that change. So it's going to take a leap of faith to go do something outside your comfort zone. But if you don't make that leap, fear's of growth. It'll continue to grow inside of you. It'll take more things away from you if you let it. That's the hard truth of it, though. You're the only one that can make that change. Doesn't mean people won't support you through it, but you're the one who has to make that hard decision to be courageous. It's easy to be fearful. It's easy to sit back and try to be safe, but not healthy. And I don't believe it's real human nature. I mean, we were really made to take risks and go try to do new things. But we live in pretty comfortable times here in America. Right. Really, it's almost like the mind and the body are learning how to adapt different lifestyle than humans were used to for a long time. Right. So you just got to go. You got to do it. There's no easy way out. No, absolutely. That's good advice. I'll add on to that is, like you said, it's not easy. You got to deal with it yourself. Absolutely. Great advice. On the flip side, it may not be easy. Saying goes, where there's no risk, there's no reward. With how hard it can be to face fear, there can be a huge reward oftentimes for facing it and sort of surmounting whatever your challenges and your devils are, your limitations are. So absolutely. But thank you for sharing that. So last thing, again, a lot of our audience knows who you are, but just, we ask all our guests to finish off, share where people can find you, or, if it's mainly RMC's website, if you want to share that, if there's any social media you want to share, however open you want to be with fans of RMC, please share away. Sure. RockyMountainConstruction.com. MTN, the mountain is abbreviated. That's our website. Go check it out. We are always trying to put up new products that are coming out and keep people updated on our current project. We have the RMC Facebook page as well. That's a great place to go. And, we put job postings on these. So if anybody's ever wanted to join our team, that's the first place to look, is our Facebook page and our website. If you really want an underwhelming Twitter follow, RMC_Jake on Twitter. I will occasionally tweet something. It will be benign, or I'll retweet something. That's about as exciting as it gets. So that's about where you can find us. Awesome. Well, thank you, Jake. I appreciate sharing that. And thanks for taking the time. I know with how busy you are with RMC, especially your new role and all the projects you guys have going on, I appreciate you taking the time to speak with us today. And thank you so much. Definitely. Thank you. I really believe in your guys' cause, and I think you've got an incredible story, and I'm glad to be able to come on and be a part of it. Thank you. We really appreciate that.
Thank you, Andrew. Thank you, Jake. That was a really awesome story, Jen.
Yeah, another one of those. He started off with kind of as the underdog and ends up coming out on top.
Yeah, what an incredible story. Especially, it was also in the documentary from This Is How We Roll, was that Jake stumbled upon this job when Fred's daughter had went into an Office Max and was looking for a new computer because she had to learn how to do CAD. And I'd done AutoCAD over in college back in the day because my major was I wanted to be an architect, and I had to learn all these different type of softwares. And Jake just so happened to be working for Office Max, and then just happened to stumble upon this opportunity, and all of a sudden, boom! All of a sudden, he landed a great job over at Rocky Mountain Construction, and now he's the Chief Operating Officer. So it really shows, guys, that you can start at the bottom and work your way up. It's like what Lee Cockrell said back in season 1. You got to have a can-do attitude, and you got to have a positive one.
Right. That's all that comes out of it.
Yeah, so I would tell you guys, you can pretty much do anything you want as long as you have A, a can-do attitude, B, a positive attitude, and C, treating people with dignity and respect. If you have those 3 key things, you should succeed well in life. I go, if you don't have those 3 things, your road to success is limited. But it was a really fantastic episode. I really want to thank Jake for coming on and taking the time to spend time with all of us here today. But Justin, how can they find us here on social media?
If you enjoyed today's episode, Be sure to like and subscribe wherever you get your podcast. And if you want to see more from us, we upload every Friday. And check us out on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, all at Coaster Challenge. Links in the description.
Thank you, Justin. Yes, guys, make sure to hit that subscribe button and make sure to subscribe to all our social media pages. We're pretty much on every social media site you can think of. You can also look back in our show notes down below with all the links to our social media platforms. You also might want to check out our website at coasterchallengeusa.com and check out our store. We sell a lot of incredible merchandise, and any proceeds from the sales goes to charity at the end of every year. And we just want to thank you guys. We are really kicking off season 2 with a great start, and we've got another incredible episode for you guys next week. But until then, this is David Cantu.
This is Jenna Gazelle.
We'll see you next week right here on Coaster Challenge.